Howdy peeps, hope everyone's doing well. Right, this one, bit of a combination of topics I want to talk about. First of all, there were some comments that were left, and I don't know if YouTube removed them or if the users removed them. So I'm going to kind of address that one first. Seeker left a message on my video regarding the whole dating separated women and recently divorced women. Now, unfortunately, I didn't quite get. I got the notification, but I haven't got the full message. Basically, Seeker was saying, "Yeah, don't beat yourself up too much, Dave, about things not working out. I noticed you like to be a bit balanced regarding genders. You like to be fair, which is respectable, etc. Just consider." And then that's where it stopped. I can only assume that you're going to say that just consider the bias regarding how men are seen and treated in society by comparison. Yeah, there is that. But I do try and have a level of humanity within myself. Now, the other thing that I will say, when I'm doing videos, especially when I'm doing these type, when I'm not using the camera as a camera, I've just blacked the screen out, I can find myself really deep in thought, and as a result my tone drops drastically, and as a result I dare say I come across as being manically depressed. Trust me, man, it's not the case. I'm just really deep in thought on things sometimes, and yeah, I don't think multitasking regarding thinking and talking is my strong point. It rarely is, if I'm honest. Sometimes I just open my mouth to change feet, if you know what I mean. Anywho, let's talk a bit about the facets of the red pill and the stance that I kind of take on it. Because I'm sure a lot of guys, especially sort of MGTOW, will be wondering, why in the fuck's name am I talking about dating and this kind of a thing? Well, it's quite simple. You know, for some guys, going their own way is quite an easy choice. It's, you know, they're happy to give up. And I respect that. Personally, I'm not quite so much of a quitter. You could argue that maybe I'm searching for the narwhal to the unicorn, which is another topic that I kind of wanted to talk about in this video. You see, I've had quite a few relationships, obviously, and in quite a few of my videos, and it's something that I never really paid a great deal of attention to. It never crossed my mind. But I've obviously spoken about dating single mothers and the kind of issues that you'll probably find will find yourself in more often than not, I dare say. But I think I have to make an exception to someone that it just never crossed my mind. And that is my ex-wife. I know, right? Yeah, I said all that in the same sentence, including the ex-wife bit. Well, here is to why. Now I get it, not a lot of people, or at least not a lot of my subscribers, will know fully of my past and my marriage and everything else. Some of you will if you've been a long time subscriber. Obviously I've spoken about this in the past. To cut a long story short, I met my, at the time, girlfriend when I was 18. She was a single mum at the time. And due to the circumstances, I pretty much took on the dad role almost instantly. It's not something that I look back with any regret with at all in the slightest. It's something that I actually cherish and hold quite dear to my heart. And I've got to say, out of the single mothers that I've had long and short-term relationships with, I think it's safe to say that was probably the better one, and here is as to why. Now, I've often sort of said, and you'll also hear many a different MGTOW content creator, and I'd like to point out that I'm red pill, not MGTOW. You'll hear them say about, you know, the disadvantages of dating single mothers. In other words, cut short, you're not a priority. You know, the kids sort of come first. Unless they are a somewhat narcissistic individual, in which case the kids are nothing more than a tool to get back at their ex, but that's kind of going off onto a different topic and not something that's really relevant here. You see, thinking back, and make no mistake, I'm not looking at this with rose-tinted glasses. The relationship was not perfect, but then what relationship really is, you know. At least we had the ability to communicate, we had our ups and downs. But if truth be told, out of all the relationships, and there's been a couple, right? Maybe a few, where I've been dating single mums or whatever, or in a relationship, whatever. She was the one that actually was more on a level with me. And I don't know if that's because I was there quite early on, and so the bond between the kid and myself was, it was something that we grew together. And obviously I did take, like I say, I did take on that dad role, which kind of surprised me. Not me taking on the dad role, but when I sort of thought about it, it's like, no, actually the ex-wife, did kind of just accept it for what it was, and we were an actual family. Something that I, like I say, I do actually appreciate, to be fair. And needless to say, she is my ex-wife now, so obviously things didn't pan out too brilliantly in the long run. And I still went through all the notions as a lot of fathers do go through when their relationship to their missus breaks down and all of that. So on a level I can kind of really relate to where a lot of guys go through these kind of issues, and, yeah, I empathise and sympathise with them. It is painful, make no mistake about it. Anywho, that was kind of that. And I found that to be an interesting, I thought about it a couple of days ago. So I was just sort of like deep in thought, and I'm like, actually, thinking back, that was probably one of the better relationships that I've had with a single mum. I mean, by comparison. It was just different. And I suppose in that aspect I'm kind of grateful, because it's really kind of opened my eyes to the others, and I guess put things more into a clearer perspective. Now, make no mistake about it, this doesn't mean to say that I want to go running back to her. What I'm saying is that it was different. So, not all single mothers are like that. Is that a Nazmalt? Or something like that. Anyway. But yeah. Now the other topic that I wanted to cover, moving on from that one, was regarding the whole sort of cluster B personality disorders. And I just want to point out that no, I'm not insinuating that my ex-wife is cluster B or anything like that. No, not at all. It's just another topic that I wanted to talk about. You see, understanding a bit more about borderlines as I learn more and more as each day passes, because, knowledge is power and all that. In fact, before I go into that one, a lot of sort of MGTOW will be wondering why am I even talking about these topics? It's like, well, realistically speaking, whereas a lot of guys may well be red-pilled and they may not be MGTOW, this is all what I would think is very useful information for them to know, at least. It's better to be prepared when you're getting into these situations, so, it just makes life a little bit easier in some aspects, or if things don't work out as you kind of thought they would, you're kind of a little bit more prepared for it, which is better than not being prepared at all. I'm not saying it makes it any easier. It kind of does in a way, but not so much at the same. Anywho, moving forward onto the whole cluster B thing. You see, I've often sort of wondered as to why some women do react the way that they do. And again, just want to point out and reiterate that I'm not referring to me ex-missus, my ex-wife, as being cluster B. That topic is dealt with, right? But in terms of borderline women and how they react to situations, because this is something that I've had to do a lot of thinking about, and how they react in a lot of different situations, especially when they have a perceived rejection. Because I've found myself in this situation as well. Whereas, well, I remember dating this girl once, and I had a particularly hectic day at work and didn't really fancy. We said that we'd go out and have a meal, but I was a physical write-off, mentally and physically, after the day at work. So I'd sent her a message basically just saying, like, I'm really not feeling going out. Now, looking back, I think that was the potential of her having BPD, but having never told me. So I was kind of assuming that she's a relatively clued up girl, normal. Or as normal as you can get in today's society, right? But then thinking back to her reaction, well, it was clearly far from normal. I'm saying that she didn't go all batshit crazy on me, but she did get very defensive, and this is something that I hadn't really taken into consideration at the time. Again, only something that came up tonight, in fact, for that matter. Watching more Sam Vaknin videos, getting more knowledge on the subject and more experience, I suppose, in that aspect. And just a whole kind of reaction to that. And then realising the way that a lot of borderline women vilify their partners in their mind, right, in order to cut them off and to just give them a reason as to why they should, air quotes, hate their partner and then seek out some form of revenge. Well, you could argue that it's a pretty out there way to go about things, but it is something that does happen, which is why I would say it makes dating or being in relationships with borderlines that little bit more difficult or challenging, and probably why the majority of guys would just flat out say no to it. But I think in these sort of circumstances, and this is perhaps a fault that I have within me, whereas I seem to think that I can help matters on occasion with these people. Realistically, I know I can't. They have to be able to help themselves, but they also need the knowledge. They also need their own sort of red pills about themselves and their self-destructive behaviour, and how, whereas their self-destructive behaviour may help them cope in the moment, in the long run, it just leaves them with a wake of broken relationships in the past. It's a sad state of affairs. Just something else I really wanted to talk about, to be fair. It's just another sort of thing that cropped in my head. I've been watching, like I say, more psychology videos, trying to understand people a bit better. Doesn't really help me sleep at night, but it does kind of help me make sense of at least some things in my life and why some relationships turned out the way they did. I'm not saying it makes it any easier, but fuck it. I mean, trying to understand it is what I mean by that. Like trying to find logic where there might not actually be any. Yeah, it's one of them. Anywho, look, I'm going to wrap this one up now. If anyone's got any thoughts, comments or opinions, feel free to jot them down as always. Until the next one, stay cool and peace out.